So we will talk about both the markets of Italy and France, and we will look at them in a specific point where a lot of people start consuming CBD or light cannabis, which is during the pandemic of COVID-19. So we will start presenting the MPG Consulting, which is the boutique consulting I collaborate for the last 6 years, and then we will move to the CBD questionnaire and on what we found from consumers in both Italy and France, especially looking at demographic motivation, but the substitution effect. So how the CBD market is substituting other existing markets that are not cannabis related, and finally we look at the future of the European light cannabis market, looking at the relationship with medical cannabis and the importance of product diversity in this market. So, as you already presented me, so we have been working with MPG in many different states of the US, both helping to pass ballots, so to provide information about market potential in states that were legalizing it, but also helping many companies to gain licenses and to advise in different product development and other services that the industry needs. We have been also working worldwide in many countries and continents, still doing advising and helping in strategy and things like that. We help also in government in other country in developing legislation. For instance, we just finished the help to advise for the Department of Agriculture of Colorado in writing the right law for the hemp market to become a center of excellence for CBD extraction and hemp extraction in general. So, what is the most disruptive force we have seen in the cannabis market? Well, it's the opening of new markets, and we have seen every year a new market open, which may be a new state, a new country, or a new specific sub-market. So, for instance, the CBD flowers. But what we will focus the analysis right now is on 4 simple products, which are on the left you see the medical cannabis product, and on the right what we can call industrial hemp, light cannabis, or CBD or wellness. We see the first 2 are just legal for medical purposes, so whether they have regular cannabis with high THC or with low THC. And on the right we see that we have flowers, we call it like cannabis, that are also legal if the THC is under 0.2 and they are grown from registered EU variety, and CBD extract that might be developed through extraction of these flowers. What is interesting right now is that we see that while these 2 markets are kind of separated, in case like Marco was telling before, we might have that if there is a lack of low THC pharmaceutical cannabis, some patients might be able to resort to light cannabis, even though the standard of production are not the same. We agree on that, but rather than nothing, that's what it might be happening right now in Italy, for instance. But what is the proposal that we have seen in France? The proposal is very radical, so it would totally block this light cannabis market, not allow flowers, and this besides for the potential of flowers to be complementary with medical market when there is no product in the pharmacy with low THC, we can also see that light cannabis market can provide more diversity, because as Bedrocan, for instance, does not provide any variety with high CBG or other cannabinoids that might be effective for certain condition. So to effectively ban this market will limit the potential wellness of this, but as we see in our questionnaire, it will also limit their potential of substituting other substances. So to study this the whole wellness market in Europe, we created the Observatory of Cannabis CBD. In that right now we have a professor from Italy and France involved. And why this was important? Because we have seen this emergence of this market in Italy. This was like the number of shops, how it has increased the number of hemp shop just in the 2 years where the flowers, like the CBD flowers, were allowed. And similarly trend we are seeing in France, as it was mentioned before. We see that in the last year, the number of cannabis light shops in France have been proliferating importantly. So this is a bit the situation in the EU that has been taken from the EU Agency for Drug Monitoring. And we we see that this is all the type of legal product based on low THC product that are sold in different EU country. And we've seen we will analyze France and Italy. So France allow any type of product, at least at this time where in 2019, except for edibles with made on flowers. And Italy instead, it does not allow e-liquid at the time of when this study was made. So how we will analyze these two countries? We launch an anonymous online survey in France and Italy. We distribute it through specialized media, and we actually have obtained about 8,300 responses from Italy and about 1,800 from France. And considering we have 52 questions in this survey, we got a lot of information about CBD markets. But I will just give you like 5 or 6 important trends we have seen. So first of all, what we have seen for the market is that the locations have been changed, of course, during the pandemic. So the pandemic, the lockdown did not allow people to go to shops and to purchase there. And so most of the purchase went online. But what is interesting is that, for instance, comparing Italy and France, at the time of this survey, there was basically nobody buying CBD flowers in tobacco shop in France, while in Italy it was about 14%. And so this is like another supply channel that we have seen is developing. And we see also some people that decide to grow their own CBD at home, although it's marginal at the moment. But what are the most sold type of product for the two markets? Well, we have analyzed inhalable and non-inhalable, and we have seen that flowers, as it was mentioned before, are still the most prevalent in the market, especially in Italy with about 87%, almost 9 on 10, while in France it's about 7 out of 10. We have also seen like a new market for trim, so small already trim inflorescence, especially in Italy. We see this new market of resins that you will wonder how can this resin be able to be sold. I mean, considering that they concentrate naturally THC, but that's what we see in the market. We don't know how they do it to keep it under 0.2%. And then we have an important market thing in France that differentiate France from Italy. We see the e-cigarettes that in Italy were a little bit, we have seen legally more problematic perhaps. But what is very important in France is the market for sublingual oils, which is almost 1 on 5 patients, CBD consumers that are using them. And we see in Italy this market does not exist. And so what we kind of, how do we kind of explain this huge difference? Well, what we have seen is that France did not have a medical market at this time, and right now it's a very small medical market still. So the CBD market in France was actually used as a complementarily for medical patients, for medical users, for patients, and that's why. And we have seen that this patient will use very much sublingual oil because it's more similar to what is the pharmaceutical way to get medications. And so this is one important thing that we have analyzed. And here another thing that can prove us the difference between the market is the people in France that has used CBD or light cannabis product in the last month for medical reason, which is 1 out of 2. While in Italy, this is much less. We see 1 out of 5. And this is because Italy has a medical market. So they don't need to go and purchase CBD product from shops, and they can find it in the pharmacy. Although, as Marco said, there is not much anymore. So maybe more Italian now will resort to CBD product if they cannot find their product in pharmacy. But this is a very interesting difference that we have seen. Also, what we see is that during the pandemic, there was very hard to find what we call regular cannabis or high THC cannabis or illicit cannabis from the street. So almost 1 on 3 decide to use CBD because they couldn't find their favorite high THC product. And then we have some interesting, some people that decide to use it just because, especially in France, to avoid the THC. And so This is because people like are not interested in for CBD. They have a very different motivation than use THC. But what is the main target of my research is the substitution of light cannabis or CBD with other substances. And as we have seen, a lot of people are that initiate to use CBD for health reason. So not people that substitute THC, but people that use it because they have some health reason for it behind it, or they want to substitute. We see that a lot of them, like the main one in France, is to substitute medications. So there is some issues that they find in these medications. Then we see regular cannabis and tobacco, about 30%, and then much less, but even alcohol, and we see other substances, even 1 on 20. In Italy, instead, the majority we have seen is using CBD as a substitute of tobacco. This one we haven't really studied yet why we see this in Italy, but most probably there is some relationship with the price of the product in the market. So CBD flowers are cheaper in Italy, so they are more substitutable with tobacco, because I mean, if you have a tobacco consumption, you need to consume quite a lot, and so CBD is more effective for that. But yeah, we don't really know why this difference. But definitely the medication in France, it's a signal that a lot of users are using it medically compared to Italy. But which are actually the reason for which people decide to substitute already medication they were using, for instance, painkillers or hypnotic or sedatives, because we have also the list of that. But why are they substituting them? So this medication, the major reason is not their effectiveness, although it's important. We have 34% consider light cannabis more effective, but for 51% is about the side effects. So they think the medication have strong side effect, and they consider CBD to do not have as much, and that's one of the most important reason. And also the lower withdrawal symptoms to this medication that they're not using. So CBD helps on that term. And the price is definitely not one of the things that convince them to use light cannabis. On the other hand, we look at the mechanism for which they substitute tobacco and THC, so regular cannabis, and these one are very different. I will just emphasize one motivation that is very different between tobacco users that use CBD flowers or high THC. That for tobacco users, one thing that is very interesting is of the CBD is their taste, that they consider much better, while those that substitute THC, they don't think the taste is so much better. So there is some problem in tobacco in its taste, so they must have changed somehow, and CBD is helping them to stop with that. And then we see for THC users, the reduction in the use of THC is related to spending more time between joints or to delay the consumption of the first, but also to use it less at work. Tobacco also has a specific reason about heaviness in the lungs that these consumers feel. So what is that we are concluding? One of the preliminary conclusion for this research that we have a few articles in publication right now, so that we can tell you more once I have that. But one of the main situation is that the medical cannabis market, although people consider medical cannabis very different from light cannabis because of the production requirements and the standardization that is very different. These markets are related anyways. So if there is not enough pharmaceutical cannabis in pharmacy, people might resort to CBD. And so that's why, for instance, in France, we see that there was no medical cannabis market, so the CBD market has become very, very medical in France until this point. We don't know when the experiment for medical cannabis in France will evolve. Maybe things will change, hopefully. But that's what we see. And that perhaps what we can, one important takeaway is that if there will be an increase in the threshold of THC, in the maximum threshold, so maybe we will pass to 0.3% next year in the EU, if I'm not wrong, but there is some countries like Czech Republic that is proposing, or Poland proposing 1%, that may affect actually the medical market. So a lot of much less better light might be sold once we have a higher limit of THC, because that will allow to have higher content of CBD within the flowers or within the final product. And so that's something to be considered, especially once the light cannabis market will be regulated in terms of quality requirement. And then one other thing that I couldn't show you, because it was like an analysis we have been doing on people that substitute product with CBD. What we have seen is that different like cannabis products are used for different substitution patterns. So all inhalable for like flowers, like trim, like resins are used mostly for those that are substituting THC and tobacco. On the other hand, sublingual oil are used mainly by those that substitute medications. And this is one thing, it's very significant, and we have seen, so there is really a different use of this different sub-product. And so to ban one of them might reduce the potential to substitute the substances like tobacco. So for instance, to substitute flowers would be an issue for those that want to substitute tobacco or high THC. And then, so to conclude, the policy recommendation that we have been doing for the two different like governments we have been talking to, both in Italy and France, is to maximize diversity and not limiting. So both diversity in products, so allowing different products to be sold, but also in number of variety, because we have seen in the study that those that use many variety of flowers per month, they tend to have a higher chance to substitute THC using different varieties. The explanation are a bit complex, but maybe if you want, I can explain you later. Then it's important to allow different distributional channel across different product types. So sublingual oils might be more suitable to be sold in specific shops that are specified on sublingual oils, for instance, pharmacy or herbalist or parapharmacy. That might be an interesting thing. But flowers might need like a specific supply channel so that they can allow a very great differentiation of varieties, because we have seen varieties are important and are something that consumers are looking for. And then to consider the tax regime based on the negative externality, but this one is also like some academic consideration that you might not be very interested in. Finally, we see that right now in the EU we have very different, we have strong barrier within different countries in terms of hemp and light cannabis circulations. So there is different THC threshold, as I was mentioning, the different standards. There are even different variety that you can produce in different countries that are not allowed. For instance, in Italy, some variety that is used in France. And so at this point, we have seen that brands are operating a bit inefficiently across country because of this lack of harmonization. So in a perhaps not so far future, we will see that the country will be connected and the hemp market will have some advantage on that, especially in terms of increased economy of scale, and the fact that that companies will be able to not like use some loopholes to operate, but to be totally legal, totally clear on what they're doing, transparent, and this transparency and will drive traceabilities, and this will probably what will improve and will make the light cannabis market thrive in Europe. Thank you.